Hey, I'm Robby Baehr, and this is an incredible conversation at the NRB conference with two of the top casting agents in Hollywood. Listen to this to find out what it takes to make it.
Our next session is titled Importance of Casting. Do big stars really matter? And our moderator today is Robby Baehr. Robby has 4 kids, married to his lovely wife, Taylor, and she is a rock star because they're 10 to 5, right? The ages. So he is the CEO of Familyguide. Who has used Familyguide? I know my wife and I have. 1 in 3 parents use Familyguide. He is known for launching a top-ranking iPhone app, leading the website to market dominance, and producing the Familyguide Awards. Prior to Familyguide, he excelled in investment banking at HSBC and grassroots marketing at Motive Marketing, focusing on films like The Passion of the Christ and Chronicles of Narnia. Robert also collaborated with Disney National Promotions Group on blockbusters like Pirates of the Caribbean and Enchanted. He's a Wheaton College graduate with additional studies at the Chinese University in Hong Kong and Oxford University. He has a panel of guests with him. If you would please welcome Robby to the stage.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And my wife really is a rock star because she has all 4 kids at home by herself in Los Angeles, so she's amazing. Well, we're so thankful to be able to be here. Like you said, my name is Robby Baehr. I'm the CEO of Familyguide. 82 million families use us to determine what content that they see. The Hollywood Reporter just came out with a study that we're the #1 reason that a values-based consumer makes an entertainment purchasing decision in America. So we feel that privilege, and we want to be able to live that honorably. So we work in Hollywood for many, many years in many different capacities, and I've had the privilege to get to know these incredible men in different capacities, different ways. I think I've known Jack my entire life, so I've known him a long time, and Mark for maybe all 20 years I've worked in this job, which has been amazing. So we're just going to start with kind of a softball question about it, but casting is just such a cool job. It's such an interesting and powerful and important job. There's so many different aspects of the entertainment industry, so many different parts to be played, but the person who chooses those persons who go on screen is just such a crucial task. And I thought maybe you could start out with what brought you there? What kind of brought you there?
An accident. Beverly Holloway, I'm her associate, and she's family, and she's been doing this for a long time. And she cast me in a half dozen things. And over time, I worked as a reader back when we did these things in person mostly, and would get cast from being the reader as the actor. They were like, "We're tired of looking at these people. Just put him in." I'm like, "Okay, I'm okay with that." But learned that side of the business and found the paychecks were a little more consistent. And just fell in love with the people, fell in love with the process. And on this side of it now, one of the things I love getting to do is demystifying that process for the actors that are coming in. And because I love actors and because I are one. So that's the quick answer. Yeah.
Well, I'll pick up on that. I grew up in North Carolina, so I really didn't have any film influences around me. My father had an 8mm movie camera, so my brother and I, as 10, 12, 11-year-old boys, would take it out in the backyard and do war movies because Vietnam was on television every night in the 1960s. We did a movie called Snoopy Goes to the Moon because every night we were talking about going to the moon in the 1960s, and Snoopy was the #1 character in America at the time. I look back on that, and really it was kind of just the fun of telling stories, right? I studied as an actor in college, but really just because it was a lot of fun. Honestly, I did not know at that point what a casting director was. I'd never met a casting director, never been on a film set in pre-production to understand that. So like every other actor, I got a talent agent when I got out of college to maybe go audition for some movies. And I went to my first audition. They closed the door. I'm looking at what felt like a soulless box, and I'm supposed to communicate with it, but it doesn't communicate back. And then the people that were behind the desk looked kind of soulless. And I froze, and I was awful. And I said, thank you very much for bearing with me today. I walked out of there. It was in my agent's office. I went straight in her office, closed the door, and I said, kick me out on the stage with tap shoes, and I'll dance all night. But don't ever make me go into a cold room like that. This is not for me. And my agent said, well, look, let's do this. I have car dealerships and hospitals and retailers all over the city of Charlotte, is where I was at the time, who are asking me to audition my actors, put them on tape for the commercials that they're doing for their projects. Why don't I hire you a couple afternoons a week to just come over here because you're an actor, you interpret the material they're sending me, and work with the actor and get a really good performance, and you just push stop and go on the camera, and we'll have a tape to send to the client. That was 45 years ago. What kind of happened after that is the most prolific film producer outside the Hollywood system in the history of movies was an Italian film producer by the name of Dino De Laurentiis. Dino probably made 700 movies in his life as a producer, and they were big movies. He made The Bible. They were epic. King Kong, Dino De Laurentiis made. Well, Dino had a movie called Firestarter, which was a Stephen King book that he was producing in 1983. And he found a location in Wilmington, North Carolina, which was on the coast of where I lived. His producing partner was Frank Capra Jr., the son of the most famous director of all time. I don't have enough time to tell all this, so I am going to
Keep going. We want to hear it.
But let me just,
For his memoirs coming out.
so many God stories. I really will honestly have to write this book, because my brother and I, again, that's the beauty of it too. We're still business partners today. He's 3 years older than I am, and most brothers struggle, right? Not only as brothers, but they struggle to work together. And I won't say that it's been an easy ride, because we are brothers, but we worked together all these years. And so we would sit around and say, well, what are we going to do next? Well, we started a promotion and publicity company in Charlotte, and the movie industry started hiring us to help promote their movies in the Carolinas. And so we had a relationship with the Charlotte Observer. Well, one day the publisher of the Charlotte Observer calls us up and says, hey guys, I'm a movie lover, and I want to bring the movie It Happened One Night, which is a film that won all 5 Academy Awards, Best Writer, Best Director, Best Actor, Actress. And I want to bring the director of that movie, Frank Capra, to Charlotte. And I can promote it through my newspaper, but I want you to promote it through all these other avenues. Would you guys join us in helping promote Frank Capra coming to Charlotte? Well, we were like, yeah. So ultimately, because we had a night with Frank Capra, when we heard about Firestarter shooting in Wilmington a month later, we called Frank Capra Jr. and said, hey, Mr. Capra, we had dinner with your dad last month, and we were just wondering if we could come down and talk to you about possibly helping you find extras or actors or whatever for your movie Firestarter. The rest is history. We drove down. Mr. Capra couldn't have been kinder. There was nobody in Wilmington that had ever done extras. We helped on the extras. Then they had 3 or 4 roles that had one line they didn't want to bring from New York or L.A., so they said, call your theater friends. You guys can try out for them, but if you're not right, find somebody who is right. Dino fell in love for the second time in his life during the making of that film, and his new wife said, Dino, quit traveling all over the world. Let's build a movie studio right here in Wilmington, and you can take your resume to the stock market and raise a bunch of money, and we can just sit here and make movies. He did that. He created a company called De Laurentiis Entertainment Group. They raised $270 million in 1983 in a 3-day public offering. And over the next 4.5 years, Dino produced 23 major feature films. And they needed extras and actors on every one of those. There were no agents in the Carolinas. I was doing open calls in malls, literally saying, we're doing a Tom Cruise movie. If you want to be in it, come to the mall. And they would line up by the thousands. and every 100th person had a headshot and resume. And they said, I'm an actor. Great. And they would put them over in this file. But literally like that, we had 23 films to our resume. Many people don't do that in an entire lifetime. Also, because it was Dino and his clout, the directors that he brought to town had all won Academy Awards, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And we're having the privilege to stand in the room with these greats and bring forth. But here's where all the credit goes to. All the credit goes to the actor. Because if it wasn't the actors showing up and doing these great performances, we don't have a job. Nor are we admired or respected or whatever. So I have owed, and always tell actors when I have the opportunity to be in their midst, that I owe my life to the actor. It's, people want to hail casting directors and this, that, and the other. And yeah, there's a certain gift or talent, I guess, and over time you get better and better at it. But ultimately, if the actor's not sitting there doing the hard work that they do to get ready for the day when I call them up and say, hey, I need you to meet Spielberg tomorrow or whoever, then, we don't have the film industry in the southeastern part of the U.S. And at the end of the day, because the South pulled that off so well with Dino, Hollywood looked in and said, wow, Hollywood is not the only place to make movies. And they started coming to the South, to the Carolinas, to Georgia, to Florida, to Louisiana. We did 7 years in New Orleans. So anyway, 45 years of that. How do you explain that other than to say my author is the one who created me, and I'm just the words, the sentence, the chapter, the paragraph, and I don't know what tomorrow's paragraph is going to look like until my author reveals it tomorrow. But that's literally my journey.
Wow. Well, these are two incredible men and very humble, as you can tell, in the process, even though, casting is such an incredible art because there is, yes, the actor is crucially important, but being able to understand and see, like that's a little piece of our creator in us, that you are able to see the creative in somebody and see where they're placed. I thought that I was going to wait longer, but maybe it'd be good to kind of talk through just some practical aspects too, even for people in this room. And maybe Jack, you I know you're humble, so I told him before he needs to say more of the things he does. You can start with saying some of the projects you worked on too, but maybe you could also just talk about kind of maybe use an example of a project that you guys have done recently, and just kind of talk through the process of it for many of the people here who are aspiring to be able to get in it.
I know this phase. Yes, we could do that. We got to work together last year.
The movie comes out today. Please go to the movie theater this weekend or this week. I can only imagine two we did together last year here in Nashville.
It's great.
This is the tagline, which we all can live by as well, if we will.
Yep.
When you're in the fire, you might see the most beautiful thing you've ever seen in your life. Don't let the fire consume you. Allow God to do what only God can do when you're in the middle of the fire. Just ask Shadrach, Meshach.
Yeah, no kidding.
There you go. Yeah.
It's a great project. I remember reading when I got the script because they didn't expect to do a sequel, and this story sort of presented itself. And Andy in particular, we've gotten to work with before on the first one, and a little bit on some of his other projects. But I think coming into this, I've sort of joked that my ministry to the kingdom is talking people out of it. Because if I can do that, you have no business being here. But if I can't, welcome your family. Come join us, And then talking about hard work, talking about training, any more than, the first violinist in the Philharmonic has been training no less for you. And really helping people understand what that looks like. Because there's a lot of, I'm in LA, I have family in Atlanta, I'm bi-coastal in that way. And the training that you find, you need good recommended people that are studying. There's a reason, and even looking on, working on The Chosen, we worked on the first 4 seasons of The Chosen. I'm playing 2 honors here. And finding on that one, a project that obviously we're dealing with biblical content, looking for something that has a sense of the epic in it. Although the approach with Dallas and the team has been to try to make that more approachable than some of the previous iterations, which I appreciate. But I always talk about, like, there's the reason the Brits and the Aussies steal all the Oscars. There's a kind of training, there's a level of training and professionalism and an ethos that is just different in a lot of ways to a lot of the training we'll find in the U.S., which is not to put down the U.S. Sometimes you're focused on different things. But that's where I have worked for the last decade with Diane Venora. You can look her up. Juilliard, phenomenon. Robin Williams, Kevin Kline, Kelsey Grammer, that generation from Juilliard, who is a radical believer and has her own crazy testimony and got stuck us together, me and your dad, at a Gary Sinise event, and she stood up. I'm like, who is that? That we've also, my side gig that hasn't, paid the bills, but my side passion is working with actors, bringing classical training together with kingdom dynamics, kingdom lens, kingdom understanding. And so we do things like work on Shakespeare and also scripture and also Tennessee Williams, but building these muscles. And there's others around the country that have been led in a similar way, because we have a vision for the need for, as we're watching Hollywood shifting and the tectonic plates moving around, which is what we've been talking about, and your dad's talking Ted's and everything else. There's a need for actors who know who they are in God, have their identity, because how many times I've been in LA. I moved to LA to go to seminary, got hoodwinked into Hollywood. God pulled me into that and then hasn't let me leave since. So that's the other side of the story. But I've watched believers come out, a lot of them actors who come out, don't know who they are in God. There's process there, maturity there, and they get displaced, they get knocked off, they get pulled in. And we've seen that. So that's another part of my passion that goes right into the casting. Finding actors who...
Can I jump in on that for 1 second?
Okay.
I want to jump in on that because I think that's a really good point, of being able to work in this industry for quite a long time. And, I worked for Disney, and I've done all different aspects. I had content at Sundance and other things. Is we meet a lot of creatives, and I get this complaint over and over again where they'll complain about Hollywood, not choosing them or not understanding them. But a lot of the time they didn't do the work to be able to learn how to get there. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine, and, his brother-in-law is just Viking strong. He's just huge, and someone walked up to his brother-in-law and was just like, man, I want to be you. And he's like, you don't want to be me because you don't want to do the 3 hours it takes every day in the gym to be me. And I think that one thing that is a good jump-off point on that is, please, it's just because you've watched a movie doesn't mean you're instantly qualified to make the movie. Learn the craft, study it, understand it. I think that that's such a crucial element, and he works on that deeply, but I do think that is something that oftentimes we forget, where people will say, hey, God called me to this. But no pastor is going to let someone who's called to be a preacher just to stand up there if they haven't studied the Bible or practiced, preaching. So just remember that on the acting side too, that it's crucial to learn that experience. You might have the natural talent, but these guys, I've had the privilege to spend time with so many of the top people, as you guys have. They are working on it all the time. They're practicing all the time. If you go into a USC or UCLA classroom, it is full of people who are successful in Hollywood that are continuing to study the craft. So just don't forget that element on that.
Even biblically, I think of David. Like, shall I offer him something that costs me nothing? Acting has to cost you. If it's going to be worthwhile, that's going to impact somebody. I think that's just truth. And famously they talk about, dying is easy, comedy is hard. So comedy, I think, even more so. But I'll get this. I don't want to get Mark's input, certainly. But speaking of The Chosen, we did an open call for The Chosen, and we had actual self-tapes, 2,000 self-tapes submitted that I and one other person got to go through. It took us a couple months, and it was a grace-building exercise. But to say to you, because we talk about from the acting side, knowledge shows behind the eyes. If you've done the work, it will show in ways you're not even aware of. but literally to the point where you've got 1.3 seconds sometimes to capture my attention, not because we don't love you and want you to succeed, but it's like that's just the sheer number sometimes. And that's how fast these things can tend to move. So that's why you're in the trenches doing the work, doing the studying up, growing your craft, why it's so critical. And also because obviously we want to offer excellence in what we're doing to the Lord.
Or just picking up all of last year, I just was reflecting a lot about the same question that I get asked every time I'm in a group with actors. They want to know, what is that special moment? What is that special thing that you see in an audition, that makes that person get the job over the other actors? And the word that I always kept going back to was authenticity. If all of a sudden I'm watching you and I'm feeling the rain and I'm feeling the breeze or the wind, and you are in that place, in that moment, living and breathing that moment, that's an authentic moment that we're striving to see. Bouncing off of that, I'm realizing most of the actors, to Jack's point, they've never invested in discovering their own authentic selves. So they're working from a place that's not authentic, and then they're going to try and play a character that is some other authentic character. That's a tricky thing. So, and when an actor gets a role, they do everything they can to research everything they can find about that character so that they can bring an honest approach to that character. Well, look at I have my Bible. It's over there. I meant to bring it up here with me. But look at the amount of information that we have to do the digest of who we are, where we came from, where we're going, and what gifts we have. Because for me, as I look back over my career, God has just guided it. I said it earlier. But it's let me be my authentic self and then let God take care of the rest. And that's what he's, in my own journey, that's what he's done. And that's what I try and help actors with. Because ultimately, if you're working from a place of security, I had two actors I had lunch with yesterday. One of them a veteran, James Russo, has been around forever and ever and ever. New York, he's in Tulsa King now with Sly Stallone. But he was just saying there's a certain, he's worked with Bobby De Niro a lot. And he said there's just a certain security that they have about themselves. Whether they're lost or saved or whatever, they're still just a solid security of who they are. And so I think that's, I don't know, a direction of where we ultimately want to go with this. But as we're doing the grind of looking for actors, at the end of the day, it's that actor that has done the hard work that y'all just talked about, so that when they walk in the room, there's no gray area about where they've landed. They've landed somewhere. It might not be the right choice, but they've landed in a choice. They live in that choice. They live out of that choice.
Please make a choice.
It's either the right color or it's not the right color. We may say, step out in the room, put on a different color, come back in, let's see what happens. But whatever decision they make, it is within the context of the character that they've discovered to bring into the room.
Okay, these guys are fascinating, so I have so many questions. Okay, and I'm trying to figure out which one to do first. Okay, I'm going to do this one. So the nature of casting has changed in a lot of ways too, from being in the room to digital. Now that's a fundamental different shift because there's a palpable presence you can feel when you are sitting across from someone. What can you kind of talk about your thoughts on that? And then how did you have to relearn anything when you moved to the digital of seeing the 2000, things instead of seeing them and sensing them in person? I wonder how that shaped what you did.
Robbie, it's such a great question, and I will pick up on it because my brother and I started it. Not because we intended to do anything at all, but we were doing a television series called One Tree Hill. It ran for 9 years. So every 7 days, we were getting a new script, and we were having casting sessions with our director every 7 days. actors would drive from Atlanta, Georgia to Wilmington. It was a 6.5-hour drive. They'd get up at 4 in the morning. They'd drive to Wilmington. They'd walk in the room, say 2 lines of dialogue in front of my director, and then they'd get back in their car and drive back to Atlanta. This went on for years. This is where, or they came from Charlotte, or they came from Richmond, Virginia, or they came from Virginia Beach, Virginia, or they drove from Orlando, Florida, up to Wilmington. I just met an actress here who said when she was 14, she got on a plane and flew to Wilmington. In 2008, the economic market in America took a heavy dive. And y'all don't remember this, but gas was $4.50 a gallon. So one day I get that phone call from the agents, my actors can't afford to come. Well, we got a problem. We still have a show to cast. So I'm saying, well, let me fax you the scenes. You go to Sam's. I've already been over there. Buy this model camera, buy a tripod, set it up in your office, bring your actors to your office, put them on tape. It was the old days VHS tape. Ship that VHS tape to me. I'll look through it. I'll edit it. I'll show it to my director. If the role is a big enough role and the director has already seen you as an actor, but he wants to meet you in person, then at least the actor knows I'm getting in the car to drive to Wilmington because the director has seen me and has interest. Other than in the past, it was just, this is a big long shot. $100 out my pocket, $100 out of my pocket. I'm not getting booked. And literally it went from VHS to mini DV to DVDs, and then a genius in LA came up with the concept of, hey, I'll do it straight to streaming. But to your point, it did change everything for me. As you can tell, I'm open. I love actors. I was an actor. I have empathy for actors because I know what it feels like to be going into the room. And I've always felt that was my biggest responsibility, is to help the actor feel comfortable so that they can fully do their creative thing. They don't have the nuances of ego and difficult directors or unknowns. I want to get rid of all the unknowns so when they come in the room, they can do what they do so well. That did change when all of a sudden I'm seeing tape. But I believe our advantage at the time is that we had traveled throughout the South our entire career. So even the people I had taping, I knew them. And I could speak to their work to my director. Now, as time went on, actors are moving from all over the world into the Southeast wanting to get into the industry, and I've never met them. So now the process is, at the point that they get submitted to us, they have demo reel opportunities. So I can go and see the work they did on 40, whatever television show, and I can get a bit of a sense of if they've been in a scene with Robert De Niro or Robert Downey Jr., then I feel pretty comfortable that they can do one of these movies. But it did change a lot, our approach. And I do know that there are casting directors that have come into the market who didn't know the actors, and they sent a lot of actors who pulled off the audition, but when they got to the set and there were 125 people standing around, they say, quiet, please. And now all this focus and silence is on this little Lone Ranger who's never been on a film set before, didn't even have to go in, do a live audition. They just melt down. Then you get that, So anyway, yeah, you get that phone call, or you get that disappointed director who 3 days later tells you, I don't know where you found that one from or whatever. So anyway, that is our job, though, Robby. Our job is to vet we have to do more vetting now and a deeper research because I don't have the advantage of being in the room.
That's so interesting that beforehand it could almost be instinctual, yes. Right? You could feel it, you could understand it, you could sense it, and now it does have to be more research.
Yeah,
in the process.
So the actor also has to be a technical genius, or hire somebody who is, because the actors got to go in, they got to tape it, they got to edit it, they got to post it, they got to upload it, and I hate that. I mean, I really do. And we didn't set out to do this. At the same time, what happened is that the earlier directors I was working were these stoic industry people had been around since the 60s, 70s, 80s. They had a tradition, right? But a new wave of filmmakers was coming through. And they were all in their 20s and just really creative. But they had spent their whole life looking at a little box and saying, that works, that doesn't work. So when I first brought them, I sent them a link that they could push the button, and all of a sudden there's 5 auditions for one role, 5 auditions for another, 5. They realized they could sit down and do that in 30 minutes instead of a 4-hour casting session where every 2 minutes they got to stand up and say, hey, how you doing? Nice to see you. And work through all the, introductions and then do a scene. It just made it more efficient and, quite honestly, easier for highly emotional directors who don't even like sometimes to meet and have to make a decision to say, sorry, I'm not going to hire you. They just don't want that emotional.
Make up a euphemism for no, right?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, we could talk forever about this stuff.
Did you want to comment on that at all, Jack, a little bit?
I would, on the acting side, I would say the work is the work, right? The work is the work. It doesn't matter if it's on a screen this big or if it's ultra Panavision. But of course it's changed. We were the guinea pigs for the breakdowns in COVID, trying to cast The Chosen. When one of our actors is in Rome at 2 a.m. and we don't have trying to find an internet connection. I mean, it was crazy. And that's God bless Dallas going with his instincts trying to figure that out. And but it's gotten better. But it is, I think it's unfair, but at the same time, it forces the actors. We all have to be filmmakers. And I was just in a wonderful class. Abby Cobb, Abby. She is teaching in L.A. and her whole thing is not craft so much as the mechanics of how to just get you in the door, get your tape scene. And the more what's becoming now is they want your auditions to be as close to looking like a movie as possible, which is crazy. And because some of these. Are you all familiar with these vertical shorts for the Chinese market? It said they were created to make Lifetime movies look like HBO. They're very over the top, kind of melodramatic, kind of fun. Everything's one take. Everything moves like this, and you've got 24 hours to do the audition, right? I mean, it's crazy. And you can get some experience that way, but there's still a lot of flux going on. It comes back to if you've been working on your craft, if you've developed roles, if you're doing, and not just, I would say not just doing do film training, do stage training, do every kind, do dance, do anything. It's all going to read and enable you to stand out, and that's what you're looking for. Because we'll get, how many reads that are fine, but fine is not going to get you there. Unless you just happen to look like the exact, it's you've got to have the work that puts you above. And I don't want to go too negative on it, but honestly, probably fully 80% of the tapes and things I'll see submitted or acted, they haven't done their work or they haven't fully done their work. So if you're doing your work, you have an advantage, and you need to know that. That's a sober thing, and constantly going after that. Never stopping.
I think that's really interesting. And I do think it's interesting about the verticals. One of our family friends is Jeffrey Katzenberg, and he started something called Quibi, which didn't do well because it launched right during COVID, but he ended up being right on that stuff, which was interesting. Yeah. Okay, so, we work with a lot of the major studios, from, with Ted Sarandos from Netflix to whatever, head of film for Disney, and you guys have done all these. And I wonder, there's kind of been this movement now, right, in a deeply technological world where people are kind of moving back. Okay, so I'm going to say this premise, and I want you guys to give me your opinion on it. Okay,
back where, Robby?
Okay.
No, where are they moving?
It feels like okay. If you remember in the old days, if you caught your kid smoking or whatever, they forced you to smoke the whole pack kind of thing, right? And then the person got so sick that they never wanted to do it again, okay? And it feels almost like in the technological world, it's like you're seeing a little bit of, there's an interesting Atlantic Monthly article about this, that there's a little bit of a breaking point where it's like, we had so much, there's so much Zoom, there's so much this stuff. You've noticed that there's been a return to the office. I was talking to this architect of major commercial architecture, and they're like, yeah, everybody's going back to office. They want that. They want the physical connection again. There's been a huge movement in Hollywood towards practical effects. Have you guys heard about this? It's like, hey, the last kind of famous movie of practical effects was Lord of the Rings, where they built the set into the ground, and people spent 4 hours wearing the And then for a while it moved to like the green screen, and then the virtual wall. But now there's almost this like longing and moving even in the audience. We have when we even see the trends of the 82 million families that use us towards this like practical effects, this and so I wonder in a way, like I wonder two things. Is one is if location is going to matter more, which we talked a little bit about that. If it's going to re-centralize a little bit more into certain locations where, like, hey, the proximity, the community. I mean, I live in Los Angeles and I love it so much. So every one of you move there. We need more Christians. If we want to change the world there, we
More
need,
Christians in
we need
California,
as
not
many Christians
less.
as possible, and especially if you vote Republican, we need you to. But the thing is that, like, I just wonder if there are gonna be some of those move backs, because of the fact that, like, now we live in an age where it's like I can write a text prompt and I can make a video. Do you know what I mean? I wonder if people are gonna want just the depth and the difficulty of the craft in a way where it's like, hey, maybe the director does switch back to those 4-hour sessions again, just like there's been a huge push for major Hollywood studios of practical effects, and a lot of our friends working in that industry, and I just wonder if that's going to happen in each aspect. Like there's been a move now to which I think is a little idealistic to go back to film because that was a very painful experience. It's kind of painful to carry those huge film cameras, but I don't know. What do you think? Do you have any sense on that or any feeling on that?
My I've been working on developing a Gen Z Spidey sense, just trying to have an understanding, right? Which is some of these sessions that have been great unto that end. And just that there's a hyper awareness there. Anything that's AI, for example, like is immediate like turn off, and where I got excited. I'm like, look what I could do. But at the same time, that desire for authenticity. When you look at a movie like Hamnet, I don't know if you've seen, which is it's a beautiful story. The acting is incredible, but it's not new. It's the old in a beautiful epic. It speaks to the soul. That doesn't change. The storytelling hasn't changed. And it's story, 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 story. Absolutely. And I think that's where I kind of have a heart for the producers, which a lot of actors like we have to learn all of it, and trying to get a sense of like even whether it's producing a little movie that's my audition or having an understanding of the broader scope of it. I think to your point though, I think I'm also aware that actors are. We need the hive. We need the community, and that's really difficult. And so I think there's a systemic thing that I could see coming together. I don't know what that looks like yet.
Can I want to add one more thing to my theory that I think both of you might take back. But like one of the things I've heard on this kind of premise in Hollywood is this idea of even kind of returning from an actor perspective to the way that they treated it in the golden age of Hollywood, where it's like, hey, Cary Grant was deeply curated. And because there was a fascinating article in the Hollywood Reporter, I don't know if any of you guys saw it, where it was like The Rock was the last A-list star that people knew kind of globally. Okay. And so in order to be able to bring someone like that, a new person like that is just like, because we live in an age where it's like, maybe this dude has like 7 million followers, but not that many people know him. Do you know what I mean? It's all these like sub niches. And so in order to create this sort of global, well-recognized thing is this deeply curated, like, hey, like this year marks 100 years since my family's been in Hollywood. So my grandparents were famous actors in the black and white era. If you guys have seen Turner Classic Movies, you've 100% seen their movies. My dad made movies. It's just like in my grandparents' age, it's like they knew where they went to the restaurant. They knew the thing. And so I wonder if it's like, hey, I mean, I'm a big proponent of LA. So like, it's like, oh, you like that feeling of like, oh yeah, you see Matt Damon and Ben Affleck together, hanging out in that curated way of like, oh wow, it kind of inspires the awe that builds that name recognition of it's like, oh, I want to see Tom Cruise or whatever. Okay,
idols, and it ain't the idol of Jesus the King. That's where we need to be focused. No, I wanted to clarify, Robbie. I'm going to clarify something.
I love Jesus as well. Just to clarify,
to be clear,
yes, very clear. There's no gray area with the words of Scripture, and there's no gray area in my life because I live my life based on Joshua saying, "Focus all your attention on these words daily, if you want to live well and prosperous." Anyway, I'm excited to tell you that I can only imagine, too, Jack and I had live auditions with every actor that ultimately is in that movie.
We saw 123 4 to 9-year-olds in one day.
Yes. We start with tapes, but then we do live auditions. And I'm remembering back now that I was thanking God that we had taught actors and agents to tape, because when COVID came, if they had not already been doing that, they would have thought, what are you talking about? Tape. I've never heard of such a thing. So anyway, God's in all things, and there were reasons that we didn't understand then. But I've been thinking about, I love that you brought this up, Robby, because it's so incarnately, spiritually right now. I watched The Story of Everything, which is a documentary, just this morning. And it's going to bring the dialogue and the conversation of the story of everything. Where do we come from? Is there a creator? If there's a creator, you were created for something very special and a purpose. But if there was no creator, if there's always been eternity and this just happened random, then we might as well be artificial intelligence. Am I right? But if there's a creator, we are human intelligence. And the battle that really, I believe, what you're truly saying is we need to touch each other. The one thing AI cannot do is touch you. The one thing AI can't do is lay hand on you and say, I want to pray for you. And I want to look you in the eye. And I want to allow my soul to impact your soul and your...
Well, let's hear it for theater then.
Yeah, exactly. So I really believe there will be a return to theater, because we want to be in the room. We want to see incarnate. We don't want to see artificial intelligence. And Robby, it is interesting the point that you're making, but I'm going to be really, really candid. This is a hard one, even for me. My wife and I felt called to move to Atlanta, Georgia, because a certain studio was being built there. And the studio was being built by like-minded people that are in this room. And so because of that, we felt like creatives from all around the world would eventually come there, many of them not believers. So if that is true, who's going to be there to be willing to mentor, come alongside, pray for, be a part of that culture? Unfortunately, because that studio was built under the fandom of Marvel, DC, Disney, then when people come there now, they're coming there to bow down to Marvel, to Disney, to DC. And what I'm personally seeing every day is what we're all dealing with every day is a clash of kingdoms. I don't know the answers to these philosophical or thoughtful thoughts. I don't disagree with Robby that if there is a superstar talent that God has gifted that moves us deeply, like Cary Grant, like Jimmy Stewart, and what we were talking about earlier is the reality is they chose great stories about heroes. So they were not as much our hero as the hero that they played in the story. I love Andy Griffith to this day because he played Andy Taylor. But when I met Andy Griffith, he was nothing like Andy Taylor. And he wanted to make sure you knew, I am not Andy Taylor. I'm Andy Griffith, you know. But anyway, to your point, Robby, if this happens, even within our faith space, look, what has happened to Jonathan Rumi? Nobody knew who Jonathan Rumi was. And now he's got the opposite issue because he's playing Jesus. So now when he goes to play other things, it's hard to him to be a chameleon actor, okay? It's kind of like playing James Bond. You know, Sean Connery quit after, 5 Bond movies just because he couldn't do anything else. No one would see him any other way. Anyway, obviously we're not coming up with the answers today, but these are fantastic conversations, especially the time that we're living in right now, this clash of artificial intelligence and human authentic intelligence. I don't know about y'all. I want authenticity. I want to be authentic, number one. And I want all of us to be authentic. And when I also watched No Limbs, No Limits yesterday, and look at his challenges. I'm talking about Nick Vujicic, for those of you who know him, ultimately had to come to the reality that God created him perfectly and that God could use the way he created him to touch hearts and minds all over the world, and he's done that. Well, do you feel that way about yourself? Do you realize God has created you perfectly and that what you bring to the world, no one else can bring to the world? Well, I feel that way when every actor walks in the room. What you're bringing in the room, no one else is going to bring in the room. It may be right, it may be wrong, but no one else can bring what you bring in to the room.
I think that's beautiful, and that is a start in that kind of understanding this thing. And obviously, we're going to see it all unfold over the next couple of years where it rolls. But I do think that you're seeing in society that people are wanting that authentic deeply. And if I think about even a personal story in my life, is so one of our good friends is a big cinematographer. He's done very many famous movies that you would all know about. He won I think he won an Oscar for Crash. He was going to go shoot Kevin Costner's new movie. So we went to go say goodbye because, it's a couple months. And he had a bunch of animals, and he had 8 chickens. And they were like, "Oh, do you want the chickens?" And I said no, and my wife said yes. So we got 8 chickens. So now we have 8 chickens in our backyard. But it's kind of like, it's so much easier to just buy eggs at the store than to have 8 chickens in the backyard. But it's like we've chosen to do this weird, hard thing that I have actually ended up enjoying, and I have 4 kids, so it's kind of slave labor to make them do stuff. But, we've done something that, like, yes, I could literally go to Whole Foods and get great eggs. But we're doing this hard thing, and I think that I feel like I'm seeing that all over. I mean, look at the trend to make sourdough or whatever, which takes like 6 hours or whatever instead of buying, which my wife also got into. She's an amazing person if she ever watches this.
You have any?
But I just think that, like, I think it'll be interesting to see how that takes in our industry. And I think that you are seeing that. The audience likes the practical effects. I think they want the real. I think they want the authentic. And I love that you guys did that most recent project where you did see everybody on it. The thing is that I love these guys so much. I've known them for so long. I wanted to open it up for questions, but I realized that we have like 1 minute. So are there 2 questions that you want to be able to ask? And then you'll be able to talk to them because they'll be here. And Jack has his picture back there, so you can see that.
I brought Shameless. If you're an actor or know an actor, please see me at the back table.
He has a course on how to improve and get better. I'll start with you, and then you over there.
My question as an indie filmmaker is your title of your workshop, Do Big Stars Really Matter to do I need to get one?
I actually, I'll give you my quick rundown on that. 2 things. One is it depends on the project, I would say, and Mark's I have some great input on that as too. But as a producer, one of the things I've seen happen in the casting, particularly our like faith-based realm, which is amazing, is where God sets up a divine appointment for a Dennis Quaid, for KJ Apa.
I love
like God experiences on set, life-changing. So that's an amazing thing to watch that's happened. And there are others that can speak more eloquently on the value of having a star at a certain level, certain budget, what that gets you in distribution, etc. My thing is, I don't know if any of you seen like Alex Kendrick sharing his testimony on YouTube this last week. Go find it. It's wonderful. And he really just highlights like it's prayer first, it's God first. What is the project? Not just a good idea, but a God idea. And from that, letting that dictate where you go. Because example of, I was talking about Testament on Angel Studios, which is modern day telling of the Book of Acts. It's wonderful acting. They're all British actors. And it's an ensemble. It's no known actors, and it has incredible impact, and it's growing. So I think it's a multi-layered question in that way. I don't know if you want to say anything on that.
Well, independent producers can't raise money. I mean, because sales agents are saying who's in your movie. And if you can't give them a name, then you're not going to get a sales agent. If you have your own independent money, you can do whatever you want. You should hire phenomenal actors, make a great story, and it genuinely will find its way. I was just talking to Robby's father. The biggest challenge today is marketing and distribution dollars, because you can spend $15 million on a really good movie, but it costs you $30 million to literally let the world know that you've made a movie. Well, this is where AI will be helpful, because there will be a day when AI can hit one button and every person in America can get an email saying, watch this movie tomorrow. Now, when that happens, all of a sudden you're not spending $30 million on the back end of marketing your movie. So as we say, things are going to be very interesting to see. But we are both advocates that no one knew who Jonathan Rumi was until he was in a great show that told the greatest story. Now the world knows who he is because he's a good actor, and they executed the property very, very well. We could sit here and I could give you a list of many of those people. They're not stars until they were in a great story, a great film, and then they become. We then bow down to them, and they didn't do anything. They don't know how this happened, right?
So I would say you want to be, if there is a star name you're after, like, why? What do they bring to the project? Because they're all going to have a different kind of pull, different demographic or whatever. There's some of the hard questions. Now, I got to add one more thing, because we in the casting department, Beverly Holloway, who's not here but in spirit, we're family, and I say actors all the time, you need to know we're for you. We want you to be it because we want to go to lunch. But the same is true for producers coming to us. Like, you got a project to cast, knowing that there are those of us here that we're going to go, we want to help you succeed. We're going to pray into that thing. I've had roles that we could not cast, and we're literally on our knees calling it in, and watch God sovereignly provide it. Like, those talk about divine appointments. So there's a lot of layers of this thing, but to know that to help you have a sense of expertise of how to work with actors, understand a brain of an actor, which can be of its own thing, that's part of what we are here for as well, to support you in that.
I think kind of the short answer is it's all about the story. The story is what sells it, and if it calls for a big actor that you need for that certain thing, then it's important. Or even Mark's point is that if it can help you on the money side, or this, if you do in the Hollywood system, they'll give you all the money you need. But if they need the certain actor to be able to do it, then there's a value to it. But mostly the story, because so many of the people who we love so deeply are people you found out because you loved the story first.
Tom Cruise is not known as the greatest actor to ever come a long time, but every show he picks, the character he plays is a hero. Top Gun, Days of Thunder. I mean, you just go, there's a long, long list. And that's why, anyway, it's good storytelling.
Hi. Okay, I'm an actress, and I hope to meet with both of you afterwards. But just a question for me as an actress, how can I stay, I guess, hopeful in a world where not many casting directors or producers want Christian actors or like value that, I guess, because it can be kind of hard and kind of lonely. So I just want to get your opinion on that.
If your acting is incredible, they don't care whether you're a Christian or not.
Be undeniable.
And then you get that job, and then they discover why you are as gifted and as talented as you are. That's the number one thing, is be better than anybody else. And
come talk to me.
That comes with whoever. Same here.
They're not going to ask you if you're a Christian or not. They just are going to see your work. So just be the best you can. Okay, we have one more question. Do you want to do it back?
See that hand?
Yeah.
Yes, you. Yes, you.
Hi. So you guys talked about with casting and stuff like that, finding people to pour into while you're working and all that sort of stuff. How would you say with how crazy fast things have gotten in productions, is there a importance while you're filming, not just after or before or all that sort of stuff?
I'm so sorry. I need you to try to speak a little louder.
Okay, sorry.
They're closing the whole show. We got.
Yeah,
I don't know why, but okay.
It's really loud right now. Would you say there's an importance of slowing down the production a little bit to pour into your actors? Like, not just before, you're talking about people that you want to pour into to strengthen their faith. Would you say that there's an importance in that while
when you're in production actively? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
It depends on the director. I think some directors want to do some rehearsals. They want to work with you beforehand. If that's not the case, the onus is on you with the other actors in that project to make it happen. Because you create that ethic, you create that atmosphere because you want to push for the best. That's what I would say. You take what parameters are given to you. If the director invites you into it, great. If he doesn't, it's still on you. If that makes sense, like just really don't hold back, because either other actors are going to pull you up and you're going to make each other better, or you're going to pull them up. Like, you're setting the bar with what I would just say is simple warmth and generosity and the work.
I guess as somebody that wants to be a director, though, is there that sort of a sense?
I think you're only going to get value out of rehearsal and working with your actors as a director, but it's onus on a director to understand acting and the acting process, and how, like, sit in on acting classes, like, learn how actors work and be aware of that is really important.
Well, thank you guys so much. These are amazing gentlemen here. Come talk to them. If you are making a movie, remember, it's important who you hire and work with. These guys are great casting directors, and they've done all these incredible projects, and appreciate you.
Thank you
Movieguide.org.
You make great movies.
Yeah, thanks.
This has been the We Who Dad podcast with Jeremy Carroll and Robby Baehr. And if you want more information on this stuff, check out movieguide.org, where we have resources, apps, all sorts of things, and stuff that will save you time on media to spend more time with your kids. Isn't that what we all want? So check out movieguide.org. Come back for the next episode of our podcast, and we'll see you in the next one.